Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat way in. Right. What's going on, everybody? What's up? What's up with y'all? So yes, I made a comment early, but I was in the clouds for the BGS stream earlier, listening in, um, listening in from the clouds. And yeah, so once again, great topic, right? This is definitely up Mr. Z's alley. This is definitely, BGS actually beat me to it. So I was gonna cover this also. Like, well, I'm covering it now. So shout out to Tone Talks, shout out to Zoe Williams. Um, and this is an old stream from Tone Talks. Tone Talks covered the black relationship, black intimacy topic a few times, right? He's covered it a few times on his channel, multiple, right? Starting from the beginning, black love, and the cost of black love. And I agree with the people in the comments that say, the duo of Zoe and Zoe speaking, more spiritual, and Tone Talks coming in with the money and kind of grounding the conversation with the reality of black life is a great combination. I completely agree with those in the comments that were saying that, right? So and once again, shout out to Zoe and Tone Talks for that, right? Um, you know, so the title of Tone's video is Can we fix love in America without money? Right? So that's the title of Tone's video. And then BGS's coverage of it, his title was Is Black Love Transactional? And the answer to that is yes. Right? Yes. Unfortunately, for many. And that's saying a lot coming from a group of people that are only on paper out of Jim Crow, right? About 50 years. Give or take a year or two, about 50 years, right? On paper, out of Jim Crow. And what makes that frightening is what is being expected of black men from their, female counterparts, black women. Only 50 years out of Jim Crow. And so it is very transactional, and that is, as Mr. Z has said multiple times, what I posit that women in America in general, but because we're black and we're speaking about black women and the black community and black love, black women have a very neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity, and much of that has caused them to have a very transactional view of relationships writ large, particularly intimate relationships, more particularly than that, intimate relationships with black men, right? Intimate relationships with black men, So that's what I forward to everyone, right? So the question for Mr. Z is always, what does a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity look like, especially in the black community, right? Especially in the black community. When building, Zoe made a comment about, we're always talking about building in the black community. Well, that comes from a very, once again, neoliberal assessment of relationships, right? That's decades, literal 4 and 5 decades of neoliberalism, right? And because we have a neoliberal assessment of everything, a market-based assessment of everything, including intimate relationships, particularly, obviously, heterosexual relationships in the black community, we end up here, right? That's what I posit. Now, for the definition of neoliberalism, neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies. So once again, neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies. So once again, about the market, right? As I said before, a marketized view of the world. So also a marketized view of relationships and intimacy, right? Of course. I also posit that we've commodified relationships in the Black community, right? Within a capitalist economic system, commodification is the transformation of things such as goods, services, ideas, nature, personal information, people, or animals into objects of trade or commodities, right? I posit that that's what we've done. We've commodified intimacy. We've commodified marriage. We've commodified intimate heterosexual relationships, particularly those on the track for marriage, or that would in any other time in history become marriage, right? So yes, relationships in the Black community are largely transactional. Intimate relationships between men and women in the Black community are largely transactional, right? The hope is the lottery dream, right? The hope for many women is the lottery dream of meeting a naive rich man that will save her from the struggles of life, that will save her from herself, right? That is the hope. That is the dream. The lottery dream. So we understand um, that 60% of Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency, right? We understand the average new home price is somewhere around $450,000. Average new car price is somewhere around $50,000, right? As millennials, we understand that for many of us, we're waiting for our parents to pass away so that we can get that inheritance money because living day to day has just become entirely too expensive, right? And in many ways, we are living through the era of legacy where that wealth transfer will determine your station in life, right? We also understand that only somewhere around 8.8, so let's say 9% of people in America are millionaires, and that's asset millionaires, not liquid, right? And understanding that, and yet listening to particularly Black women in America speak about intimate relationships with Black men as if they need to be transactional without actually wanting to bear the cost of a purely transactional relationship, right? How would that look if it was really transactional, right? There is something to be said about our current environment pushing this transactional relationship. This is what happens when economists are the ones who write what intimate relationships should be based on. When you don't categorically reject Milton Friedman. And shout out to BGS for also mentioning Ayn Rand, who pushed selfishness. Yes, her whole entire project was about being selfish and self-interested. And that seeped through the culture. And even though if you go to your average woman, average Black woman, they don't know who Ayn Rand is, but if you listen to them talk long enough, there are pupils to her message, right? They are reciting her message if you listen to them long enough, right? We have allowed ourselves to commodify each other and to have that pushed on us. particularly, well, the women. Does that work for the black community? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right? This is where the myth of white womanhood comes in. We also know that 75% of mothers work in America. Right? If you have a neoliberal assessment of men, then relationships do become transactional. And when the petite bourgeoisie of black America, which is predominantly black women, are the writers and the authors of the narrative of black America, while being the handmaidens of rich white elite men, whether they be conservative or liberal, then how do we think they're going to sound about black men who are largely working class, working poor, and middle class? If lucky, working class, poor, working poor, and if they're lucky, lower middle class. How do we think the petite bourgeoisie of the black community will speak about these men? Well, I would like to forward you Kim Foster. I would like to forward you Ebony K. Williams. Right? The women that got chose by the system speak about black men in a very adversarial way. Of course they do. Right? Of course they do. I would like to forward you Tiffany Cross, Oprah, Gayle King. The women that got chosen, black women that got chosen, the petite bourgeoisie speak about black men from a class aspect. Once again, Kim Foster. Once again, Ebony K. Williams. Right? Y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. That is what neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity looks like. Right? So we had a commenter in Tone's comment section who said, you're advocating for poverty for black women, as if black women are not already in poverty. So this is where Chrissy comes in with the hypergamy talk. Right? When you have a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity, then you are going to speak about hypergamy. Because men aren't human beings, they're human doings. And they're only as great as their wallet. This is where you have the level up coaches and the hypergamy coaches and the femininity coaches that really are just pushing, once again, wrapping right back around to hypergamy. This is why you have women pushing lifestyle content all on their pages as a softcore porn, right? Lifestyle is softcore porn. This is where Paris Milan comes in with the $2,000 dinner receipt. Aspirationalism becomes the new god. Right? This is where the building, and always talking about building, that's where that rhetoric comes from. Right? Because you have a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity and relationships. Right? Men are their wallet. And we've heard women verbatim say it. We've heard black women verbatim say it. A man is his money, as that African sister in Britain once said. Train tracks, train tracks, train tracks, right? A man is his money. Well, when you come from a group of people who were not only enslaved, but then spent another century being treated as worse than second class citizens, who, on paper at least, have only been free from that for about 50 years, and then we demand from them not just a white woman's lifestyle, but an elite or rich white woman's lifestyle, an upper middle class white woman's lifestyle at worst, right? When we demand that from them, well, you get what's going on in the black community currently. Right? That is what this is about. Right? I posit that in a neoliberal society, poverty becomes a character flaw. And for the black community and for black men not being able to provide at the very minimum the standard white woman's lifestyle also becomes a character flaw. For the petite bourgeoisie black women, not being able to provide the upper middle class, rich, or elite white woman's life is an extreme character flaw. So once again, it becomes a character flaw to not be able to provide a certain lifestyle. And if you listen to black women speak long enough, you will see this and hear this also. Right? It is easy to denigrate a group of men that you see as less than because they're not playing their role in the market. Right? This is height of Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, Frederick Hayek. This is the pinnacle of their worldview. And you can see it expressed by women, black women, who are only 50 years out of Jim Crow. Speaking about black men. Right? Gigi said everything that needed to be said. Zoe Williams said everything that needed to be said. BGS, who's in the room, shout out to you, BGS, said everything that needed to be said. The relationships have become extremely transactional because we have a group of black academics, namely the women, the petite bourgeoisie of the black community, namely the women, who are either not students of history, extremely disingenuous, both, or want the white woman's life so much that it's caused them to throw black men writ large and even other black women, throw them off the edge of the cliff for the shot and the chance to be an upper middle class white woman. There you go, Gigi. I just answered to you why Kimberly Crenshaw threw black men away. Uh-oh. I would love to see that conversation between Gigi and Kimberly Crenshaw where he can ask her and we could watch her stutter and start stammering and equivocating. Right? How does your ideology and your worldview look like when you are presented with six-figure careers and thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, in lecture fees? Do you really mean what you say? Right? When the white woman, the middle class, upper middle class white woman that you covered her position, when she come to you with that check and offers you the Faustian bargain, now what? Right? And BGS caught exactly what Zoe said. This building every 5 seconds. These are things that y'all hear on Mr. Z's channel all the time. Right? Even Kim Foster, who we are not aligned with, had something to say about the black women in luxury movement. And how it's very interesting that as we go through this kind of economic downturn, you have black women talking about black women in luxury. Does your myopia knows no bound? Do it know no bound? Extremely myopic. Right? As I've said before, to be going through COVID-19, to be living through COVID-19, and to be calling into a middle-aged black man show, Kevin Samuels, and to be demanding six-figure men while you're living through Armageddon. You don't even know what's going to be on the other side of that. You didn't call in looking for a decent man, a good man, a faithful man. To be living through COVID-19 and to be telling a middle-aged black man about how many black men are not on your level and who wants to be with average anyway. How is that not myopic? And y'all give Mr. Z a second. Y'all, I'm gonna pause right here. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. So what I'm positing is just as the commodification of relationships and intimacy are not working for the black community, they're also not going to work for any other. Will they work a little bit better for these communities outside of the black community? Yes, because they have more resources. But would they work overall? No. Right? And y'all give Mr. Z 1 second. My background is a bit noisy. Y'all give me 1 second. I'll be right back with y'all. Talk amongst yourselves. And we are back. My apologies, everyone. My apologies. Life is lifing, and we're back. So this is what it is about. Um, Black relationships will not last. Black marriages will not last. We understand the marriage rate, right? Something like 80% of Black women file for divorce. When they do get married, we understand those marriages tend to last somewhere on average of 5 years, right? We understand that. So yes, black relationships and marriage will not last under the current paradigm, especially when the XX chromosome side has bought in to neoliberalism, to the transactional relationships, to the no romance without finance. There can be no other way. And when these people lack systemic analysis, or they think that you Black men can John Henry and lift yourself up by your bootstraps your way out of this current environment, which is eating even white men, which is eating even Latino men, right? These people are screaming hypergamy while we live through stagflation and greedflation, right? A Freeman-esque Randian view of intimacy and relationships, right? A free market view of intimacy and relationships. It's unsustainable. as evident by your less than 30% marriage rate. It's unsustainable, as evidenced by the fact that Black women are filing for 80% of divorces, somewhere between 70 and 80% of divorces, and it has nothing to do, for the most part, with infidelity, with physical abuse, right? Boredom, money. What happens when, and that was the question that was asked, that Tone Talks, Antonio Moore, attorney Antonio Moore asked Zoe Williams, what happens when you have toxic ambition? So the question is, what happens when this designated bottom caste of people, largely the women of that cohort, have toxic ambition in a vacuum? That is the question. How do you maintain a community with that dynamic? How do you hope to prosper inch by inch with that dynamic? How do you hope to build a next generation with a Randian view of relationships, with a Freeman-esque view of relationships, with a neoliberal assessment of relationships, when you've commodified marriage and intimate relationships? How does this work? It doesn't. Right? So we're going to give the definition for neoliberalism again. We're going to give the definition for commodification. Neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies. Market-oriented reform. Right? We literally refer to the dating market as the dating market. We've literally commodified the opposite sex, particularly women commodifying men. Commodification. Within a capitalist economic system, commodification is the transformation of things such as goods, services, ideas, nature, personal information, people, one more time, people or animals into objects of trade or commodities. Into objects. Right? The transformation of people into objects of trade or commodities. So when Mr. Z says these people look at us as walking wallets and overglorified guard dogs, that is what it is. And y'all give me 1 second, y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. And yeah, so how is this sustainable? It's not. It's not. Who does this benefit? It doesn't even benefit Black women. A handful of petite bourgeoisie Black women. But outside of that, it doesn't. It doesn't benefit the masses of black women. It doesn't benefit black men. It doesn't benefit black children. The black community doesn't have it like that to be this transactional. In a very Disney-esque way on top of that, because these women don't truly want transactional relationships. It'll get real ugly, right? Even Brianna Joy Gray understood when she watched the Kevin Samuels clips what this was. The whole entire relationship, echo chamber and podcasting. To be very clear, for the women that don't get it, that might be listening to Mr. Z, all of 2 or 3 of you. If you demand the man comes to the table with money, then guess what? If y'all are trading here, y'all are at the table. This is the horse trading. Shout out to BGS. Shout out to Obsidian. If you're horse trading at the table, right, and you're demanding six-figure man, then six-figure man gets to demand a certain type of comportment, a certain type of dress, a certain type of femininity. Oh, yes. If you want transaction, that's what it looks like. Guess what? He gets final say. You want the transaction. If you want marketized relationships, you have to understand what happens on the other side of that, what that truly looks like. You grab second gear. You see what I'm saying? And grab second gear says marketing relationships in a fading economy, right? And we don't only see this in America, in the American context. Shout out to Passport OG, and once again, thank you, Passport OG, for covering my topic and expounding on it and giving us the holistic view of what's going on in Japan, right? But you also see this going on in Japan, in South Korea, right? Currently in China. You see this being mimicked in parts of Western Europe. Right? The neoliberal assessment of relationships, masculinity, men will always lead to black men because of our current paradigm. Being deemed as the bottom caste of men by black women. From nothing much more than a lack of resources. Not physical prowess, right? Not character flaw as much as they talk about it. Not a lack of charisma, but a lack of resources. Right? And these people would myopically say they want this or advocate in a way that speaks to this, and then not like what's going on the other side of that transaction. Your quote unquote standards versus his quote unquote standards means you single and alone. Right? We understand that some 2 to 4% of black Xers earn some 6 figures a year. Right? How does this work? It doesn't. So the lottery dream, as I said before, is to meet and be in relationship with a naive rich man, particularly white man. In a neoliberal order, right, it will be the white man, because the white man does not only represent the income, but the wealth and the status, right? But the wealth and the status. So, going over this again, um, I posit that in a neoliberal society, poverty becomes a character flaw. Not being able to afford women, black women in this case, a particular lifestyle, namely of opulence and extravagance, nice things, to put it bluntly. Not being able to afford that, or not being able to afford that at a high level, or being able to afford that often enough, is seen as a character flaw, because it's a character flaw, right? I say this benefits the same rich white elite men that these women covet. I say not, and shout out to Green Gorilla. I say that if you are speaking about these relationships in a very selfish, myopic, self-interested, self-centered way, then this will only benefit the elites. You don't coalesce with each other, right? You don't form think tanks. You don't go at the system. You are singularly self-interested in oneself, in one's outcome, in this lifetime. So the talk of caring about other black women and black girls and the future of black girls is BS. Your colorism talk be damned. Your black woman empowerment talk be damned. Admit what you're doing. You're selling lottery tickets. And you're not even selling the lottery tickets. You're selling the dream of winning the lottery. No metric in America shows any type of great number of men earning this type of money to afford this lifestyle. Not white men, not black men, not Latino men, not even Asian men. Not South Asian or East Asian. And Bruce Onway says, L'amour pas gratis encore. Batman said, I'm gonna make sure you speak Creole every single chance I'm here. Every time I'm here, you're gonna speak Creole. Right? And Covina Man says, here in Los Angeles, the average home prices are closer to $1 million. Are closer to $1 million. And the average black woman's income is some less than $40,000. What is it, hovering around 35? And that's average, not median. Median is closer to 20 something. Charles says, "C'est la vie." Right? What's the median household income in America? Somewhere around $70,000 a year. One third of households in America earn $100,000+ a year. I think it's been readjusted. I'm probably going to cover Jason Black covering this. And that's the environment where we want what, transactional relationships for a group of people that just got out of slavery like yesterday, just got out of Jim Crow 2 seconds ago. Right. I also posit that we are, and I keep on saying it, the rhetoric will get louder. Before it gets better, it's going to get worse. Especially, let's be very clear, especially as that great wealth transfer starts to happen, especially over the next decade, some $16 trillion is going to be transferred from boomer parents to their children, mainly white. So that wealth gap is going to turn into a chasm. So that Telluride is going to go from a $40,000 and $45,000 truck to like a $60,000 truck. If you think black women are screaming now, Mr. Z would say they would get their mind right, but COVID showed me, probably not. I've said it. Your favorite content creator is going to walk you off the edge of the cliff. They're not going to fall off. And right before you fall off, they're going to pick your wallet. And you falling off the edge of the cliff is falling into depression. It's falling to depressant pills. It's falling into thoughts of self-deletion because you don't have an accurate assessment of reality. Because you are solipsistic. Because you have a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity. Right? As the young lady said, and I'm assuming it's a young lady, you're advocating for poverty for black women. You're saying this to a attorney who's been doing this type of work for at least what? At least for what we know, for at least 5, 6 years, from what we know. And that speaks to something. That gives us an insight into that mindset. To have Zoe Williams, and this is once again, this is an old video, right? This is like a 4 or 5 year old video. Maybe three, somewhere around 4 years old. To have this clip of Tone Talks and Zoe Williams speaking about relationships and intimacy in the black community and the money that's hindering these things from forming. And speaking about the mindset of black people that's also hindering these things from forming. Right? The hustle culture mindset. And to watch these men speak about this thing in a very mature way. And to respond to that hour-long conversation with you're advocating for poverty for black women. How is that not myopic and solipsistic and quite frankly insulting to the men and to all the listeners? Right? How is that not delusional? Is it possible that what you want is the Disney-esque ending, right? I bring this up all the time. I'm gonna actually have to, and I said it before, I'm gonna have to cover this again. Um, Selling women, well, rewind, selling girls on lifestyle branding, right? And what that's done to our society. Selling young women and girls on lifestyle. Those girls and women are now Xers and millennials. Younger Xers, millennials, and the oldest of Gen Z, who are all in the dating world, even though the Xers should have been out of the dating world a decade ago, at the least. All these women are in the dating world, and they've had unfettered consumerism pushed to them for 4 decades. So you had young and middle age advertisers writing up scripts attacking the minds of your children, your girls, and selling them on lifestyle, right? Selling them on lifestyle for 4 decades. Those girls are now women and they don't know their head from their ass. So to answer BGS's question, is black love transactional, right? Is black love transactional? Let the women tell it, right? Should it be transactional, particularly knowing America's history? No. Is it transactional? Absolutely. For all black people? No. For enough? Absolutely. Right? Because we have the Ebony K. Williams and the Kim Fosters speaking for black women. Right? It's the Ebony K. Williams and Kim Foster speaking for black women. Those two perfectly represent the petite bourgeoisie of the black community. Those are who get to lecture. Those are who get the microphone in their face. Those are who our society decides to listen to for social commentary on the black community. Those are the people, right? Those are the people that get to be political pundits. Those are the people that get to work behind the scenes for campaigns. That's the worldview. So you have the quote unquote liberal in Kim Foster, the 1 foot in left, the 1 foot in right, Ebony K. Williams, and the full on to the right, Candace Owens. Either way, What you have is this is the voice, right? So putting the hustle on a pedestal is something else that Zoe Williams said, and that ties into what we're saying about the talk about building, 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 putting the hustle on a pedestal, right? Hysterical, AB. I ain't even gonna read it out loud. Hysterical, right? Putting the hustle. So we're not using hustle culture, the term, as much anymore, as much as we were a few years ago. But it is about putting the hustle on a pedestal. And y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. It is hustle culture. Hustle culture gets put on the pedestal when you live in a neoliberal society and you're coming from the working class, right? When you're coming from the lower middle class, when you're coming from the working poor, right? Hustle culture, shout out to Jay Morrison, oops, right? Becomes everything, right? Of course, it's about hustle culture. As I said, like many black businesses are there to sell you on black business, to sell you on entrepreneurship. They don't have a product. The product is your sensibility. The product are your emotions. Selling you on entrepreneurship, that's part of a neoliberal society. If you're not a business owner, are you even real? Are you even trying? If you don't have an LLC under your name, are you even trying? Right? And this is not necessarily to go at the entrepreneurs in the black community. You are needed. It's the worship. And on the other side of that is how the women internalize that message, right? The way the women internalize that message and then flip it right back on the men, right? So I'm about to end out. As a matter of fact, let's see. Let's see. Give Mr. Z 1 second. Let's see who else is okay, right? Yeah. Charles said, I have an LLC. Trust me, it's not easy. Right. So that's all. As I said before, we're gonna see more of this. I think this conversation is needed. Shout out to BGS. I might come in tomorrow morning to kind of go in on this further. I watched the original video, obviously, of Zoe Williams and um Tone Talk speaking about this. It was actually on Tone Talk's channel, originally, which it is again, and the fact that he reposted it and it still rings true some 4 years later. So I watched the original. It was a great coverage that BGS did, the fact that Green Gorilla came on and essentially said what Mr. Z be saying all the time. Let's articulately, right. I say I'm not as articulate as Green Gorilla in it, but yeah, these women are getting what they wanted. You didn't advocate for black boys and men. You didn't advocate for them, right? This is about the myth of white womanhood. This is about, expensive clothes and day parties, expensive trips overseas, luxury apartments, luxury hotels, luxury cars, right? Handbags that cost thousands of dollars, exclusive neighborhoods. This is about the myth of white womanhood. This is about upper middle class white women, rich and elite white women. Transactional relationships coming from black women who are largely working class, lower middle class, working poor, and having a neoliberal assessment of black men in relationships will only further destroy the black community. It won't even help black women. Dear Chrissy, it won't even help black women. Dear Yanni, it won't even help black women. What did Chrissy say? Well, sometimes I like engaging in the fantasy too. Y'all be saying these things because y'all don't think we're listening. I told y'all let them talk long enough, and every once in a while they'll throw out a comment and be like, "Oh, you said it," right? So you won't be real with your subscribers, and this is supposed to benefit them. How exactly? Just date out. The white men don't even got it like that. Not the masses of them. Not the masses of them. Even when this wealth transfer happened, it still won't be the masses of them. Have fun, right? If you want to know why black women are chronically single, delusion, right? So the titles of the videos again was Tone Talks, Can We Fix Love in America Without Money? Remix, and BGS, Is Black Love Transactional? Right? And BGS just beat me to it because I was gonna cover Tone Talks reposting this also. And I highly suggest everyone watch the original also, right? I highly suggest everyone watch the original, right? Detroit Detroit paid just to making sure I read it. And Detroit says, and thank you for the super chat. That Somali chick said, decentralizing men before the incident happened. And yeah, I saw it. I saw the video. I saw the video where she said that. I watched a bunch of clips and yeah. And thank you for the super chat, Detroit. But yeah, I saw that. It sounds nice. It's grab second gear, exactly. It is about conspicuous consumption, right? It is about conspicuous consumption. That's what all of this is about. And maybe I need to do a dedicated video about that. Thank you very much, grab second gear. Thank you for that thought, for that, inspiring that thought. It is about conspicuous consumption. And imagine basing your love life, potential family structure, potential marriage on whether a man, black man, could provide you the lifestyle for conspicuous consumption on a high enough level, right? Talk about money over everything. And we were led to believe it was men that were the sharks, right? We were led to believe that it was men that were cold and calculated, right? All over, we're watching the fallout of this. I'm better you. So that's what y'all gonna do? Y'all just gonna, Mrs. Z, you gotta read this. And Better You says, and thank you for the super chat. Goddamn, I hate that you made me read this. And Better You says, wonder if they gonna decenter bricks now. Oh my god. Um, rumor in the rumor mill is that there's something about this that's still not above board, right? So we'll say that. There's a reason why Mr. Z ain't covering it. There's something about this story that's still, not above board. And I'm waiting for for the next shoe to drop, right? I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop because something about this is not, you know, right? And I really want to stress that, like I said, and this is the out of everything I said, what I really want y'all to take away from this tonight is the living in a neoliberal society, and from what Mr. Z got dropped from his own stream. Wow, right? So, anyway, Mr. Z is back. I got dropped from my own stream, but what I really want everyone to take away from this is the primary thing I want y'all to take away from this. What I said about living in a neoliberal society and poverty becoming a character flaw, right? And for some, being able to provide the necessities of life also are a character flaw. Because if you can't provide the extras, right? If you can't provide the nice things, if we can't have a certain lifestyle, that is also seen as a character flaw, right? And these people are so myopic, and they're also listening to their favorite celebrity, to their favorite content creator. They have these parasocial relationships with these people. So they do view this lifestyle, if it cannot be provided by a black man, by a black man, it is a character flaw. right? It is a character flaw. Trell said every lane wireless, right? You know, to read that comment from the young lady on Tone Talk's comments that said, "You're advocating for poverty for black women." To read that comment tells you everything you need to know, right? That's what it's about. And on that note, everyone, we'll close out here. Y'all have a great, great rest of your night. We'll pause right here. Um, we, like I said before, we might come back tomorrow to speak about this, right? But shout out to BGS for covering this. Shout out to Tone Talks for reposting this, so we can have a more honest conversation about what this is about, right? To think that these people are asking for this only 50 or so years out of Jim Crow, a lifestyle that even the majority of white men can't afford. Is it all black women demanding this? No. Enough? You know. And on that note, we'll truly pause right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all have a great rest of y'all night. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content. There's definitely other brothers streaming right now, other non-Manosphere content, for the love of God. So y'all don't sound like these ladies, right? So y'all don't sound like the young ladies saying we're pushing poverty. We're advocating for black women to be in poverty by being honest about the environment. Which, by the way, this is why many of these people are delusional, because they don't watch or read or look up anything that speaks to them about the reality of life and the reality of these situations. Most of them would never guess in a million years that the median household income is $70,000 a year. They would never guess it ever, right? And that's why I advocate for y'all to watch other non-Manosphere content, right? So y'all don't sound like these women. And on that note, we'll end out right here. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Mr. Z out.